Hey everyone, this is Tom Singer. Before we get started with today's episode, I want to inform you about a special offer that I have to join a brand new group called My Sales Call. If you work for a small business or if you're a solopreneur, having some people to talk about ideas and best practices and to have a focus and accountability around sales is so important. It's so easy to get caught up in the busy work that we don't do what we need to do to drive the sales in our business. So I have started a weekly call where people can get together and share ideas around sales and then make a commitment to the group of what they're going to accomplish for the next week. It's just like if you work for a big company, your sales manager would have a weekly sales call. This is your sales call. Go to mysalescall.com to find out more and sign up today.
Welcome to the Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do podcast with your host, Tom Singer. In each episode, we explore the interesting lives of business leaders, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and others who have a healthy dose of the entrepreneurial spirit. It is time to explore something cool. Now, here is your host, Tom Singer.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. Thank you so much for pulling your chair up to the cool kids table. But hey, I have an announcement today. This is the first time you're going to hear it, and that is we're going to change the Cool Kids table. I've been doing this podcast for coming up on 6 years, and starting July 1st, which is just a couple of months shy of 6 years, we're changing the name of the podcast. We're focusing a little bit more on larger company CEOs, and I'm changing the name of the show to Making Waves at C-Level, as in the C-suite. So you're going to start seeing some different interviews coming down the pike, and we're going to start today with the interview with a CEO of a great company, and I'm really excited to have him here today. I was supposed to be the Master of Ceremonies at the company's big users conference for all their customers that was going to be held in April, and I was really excited. I researched the company. I got to know some of their people, super great people, technology company, awesome, and then coronavirus came along, and we had to push that event off, hopefully to the fall, maybe next year. But I'm looking forward to getting to be there on their stage as their Master of Ceremonies, make their event really engaging, have a little bit of fun. But in the meantime, since we couldn't go live, I thought, let's go podcast. So today I have Russ Agrusa, and he is the CEO and the founder of Iconics. And we're going to have a great chat about sort of the history of the company, what it's like to be an entrepreneur, maybe a little bit about where they're going as they come out of the other side of all of this coronavirus stuff. So, hey, Russ, welcome to Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do, soon to be Making Waves at C-Level.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm excited about the podcast.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. So what led you to be an entrepreneur? Tell us a little bit about your background before you founded Iconics.
Well, my background was in engineering. I was trained as an electrical engineer and worked for Westinghouse, the company that Nikola Tesla helped found back in the early days. So alternating current, being able to generators, turbines, all the things that we use today, 60-cycle AC coming through your walls. So I worked on systems to help produce electrical energy. And then to do that, you need a lot of software, it turns out. So I was in there in the early days of mini computers and helping create applications that would help run power plants, fossil power plants, nuclear power plants, wind turbines, renewable energy, any place you can get some electrons to flow. And, after that, I started a company, Iconics, with 5 other people that we had worked together. And we everybody had their own expertise. We quit our jobs, and we convinced our wives to give us a couple of years and fund us. So the wives said, okay, you got 2 years to produce something. Otherwise, back to work.
Back to work. That's right. What year was this? When did you found it?
1986.
Wow.
It's been a while. So back in 86, I bought my first personal computer. It was a Dell. It would cost $5,000. I have to realize a Mercury Capri, a car, would cost you about $3,500. You buy an entire car for that amount of money. A brand new Mercury Capri out of Germany. So I bought this computer, still in my office, and it was actually, when I called up, it was sold to me by Michael Dell. He was working out of his dorm room.
Oh my gosh! So you were an early customer of Dell.
Early customer. I found it in Byte magazine, and it said for $5,000 you get a 1 megahertz processor, 1 meg of memory. And if you buy this little chip, he can boost the performance to 2 megahertz. So it had a 10 meg hard drive. It weighs a ton. It's like a boat anchor. But we developed the products on those machines. And so it was the dawning of personal computing. Back in '86, the AT computer had just come out, and we were writing everything in a window in C. We were using some tools, Lattice C. It was eventually bought by Microsoft and became Microsoft C, started their entire tools business. And where did we get our expertise? Well, we were working on projects that were doing factory automation, doing industrial automation, water plants, power plants, car manufacturing. So we were doing these on PDP-11s and mini computers. We took our know-how and we transported that to the personal computer era. And 5 of us created a product. And back in about 1988, we went to our first trade show 2 years later. And it was in Houston, Texas. It was called the ISA show, the Industrial Instrument Systems show in Houston. And we got 450 leads. We had a little tabletop of it was a 10 by 10, and 3 of us were down there, and we had 450 leads, and people were clamoring for this. We were running on Windows DOS.
And that was about the right timing that your wives were happy, because leads probably led to customers.
Exactly. And the first customers were, we had NASA on doing wind tunnel testing. In fact, the Houston Space Center doing zero gravity testing uses our software to this day. We had Polaroid. They were trying to make SX70 film last longer because the shelf life in a pharmacy would be about 6 months. Well, if you could extend the life of film to 2 years, you didn't have to take back all of this film. So we were working with and Disney. We started with Disney on their first ride. It was a Spaceship Earth, and they were having the ride fail every day. And the guests would be in the dark, climbing down ladders out of the Spaceship Earth. That's a geodesic dome at Epcot Center. So we got a call, and we went down there, and we helped them solve the problem. Some of the motors were pulling the entire ride. Out of 119 motors, 3 were doing all the work, and these things would burn out. Mm-hmm. So we showed them how to balance that and balance the load. And they loved us so much that today we have over 274 rides running our software. We are the show monitor. So we've been on all the new rides that they've done, and the opening in France and China and so on. So personal computers used in many different ways for doing water treatment systems, oil and gas. We did the Harry Potter ride at Universal Studios, which was a very cool ride.
I was there when it first opened that summer. We took the kids, and that was one of the best rides I had ever been on in my life.
For 3 years, we were under an NDA, and they selected us to be the software monitoring system for that ride. That was a $370 million ride. The CEO nearly got fired because around that time frame, there was a drop in 2008, 2009, and nobody was going to the park. Then everything opened up. That ride would take about 20,000 people a day. People would line up for 4 or 5 hours at a crack for 7 minutes, going through, sitting on a broomstick on the end of a robot, 60 robo-coasters that would normally be used for truck manufacturing. You would be on the end of a gondola, riding through this building on a broomstick. It was amazing. People were just blown out of their chairs. It packed the park nearly every day, 60,000 to capacity for like years.
Yep.
So
I still say it's the best ride I've ever been on.
And so the history of that ride is quite amazing because we worked with Disney quite a bit, and J.R. Rowling had personally wanted this. And so she was pitching this to the Disney people, and they were about to sign the contract to do the Harry Potter ride at Disney. That's where it was supposed to go originally. But she said, I have only one condition. I want total artistic control of the ride. And the Disney's people said, no. This is already going to cost $300 million. We're not going to let you go in there, change everything, and we're on the hook for this. So they refused to sign the agreement. She went across the street to Universal. They said, whatever you want. And they got the contract.
And that's a great story, because that's a game changer for Universal. I mean, that ride, was a game changer for their amusement park. So that's awesome.
It was. We've done 4 of them so far at Universal in California, St. Petersburg, and actually in Osaka, Japan. There's another one. So that led us into working closely with Universal. So when I go to visit Disney, I say, "Is there anything we can do for you? Is there anything that we can do to help out?" They said, "Yes. Get us a Harry Potter ride." I said, "You had the ride in your hands. You had it. You sent her away." They said, "We know. We fired the CEO for that." So that's a story of how software automation is used in so many different applications.
Well, and just in 6 minutes, I mean, you have shared some, fascinating stories of the journey of Iconics. I'm sure we could make this like a 3-hour podcast with all the different types of amazing customers that you've worked with. And I love that.
That's how we started out with those sort of customers. It was Polaroid, it was NASA, it was Universal, it was Disney, and water companies and power companies. So it's just fascinating how people use personal computers to automate their systems today. I mean, my favorite was going to Nabisco and watching them make chocolate chips Oreo cookies and Chips Ahoy. And you would go in there and there's a 300-foot oven and they're making these cookies and you could pick them right off the thing. And why did we get called into Nabisco? Because they almost killed a couple of their operators. When the cookies are coming out of the oven, you're making Fig Newtons, you cut them and then they stand them on end. Well, now they're very gooey. So they put them through a freezer, and many of them had fallen off in the freezer, and they were calling, and none of the Fig Newtons were coming through. They didn't see any, so they were calling for more Fig Newtons. Fig Newtons were filling up this entire massive freezer. They could not get the door open, and they nearly drowned in Fig Newtons. What a way to go.
Well, I mean, that is my favorite cookie. So if you had to go, it would be my choice of death by cookie. I'd put the Fig Newton, right? I'd put the Fig Newton as the way to go. But
take a while to dig you out, though.
So if I've done my math right, you started the company 34 years ago. So how many employees do you have now?
We have about 250 worldwide. So we're doing primarily software automation. Now, we've been pretty successful over the years. I work very closely with my wife. Was a CPA and the MBA, and she was a financial person. So it was a great combination. She took care of HR, finance, legal, and I did the marketing, sales, and the development side. This last August, we sold the company to Mitsubishi Electric, which is a $60 billion multinational company out of Japan, and they're using our products throughout all of their different family of products: robotics, PLCs, drives, elevators. They make a lot of elevators and escalators. So,
what have you loved about the life of entrepreneurship since you and your partners went to your wives and said, "No, really, give us 2 years," and now you've built this giant successful company, you've sold it? What have you loved about the journey?
It isn't the money as much, although you really do want to be profitable and you want to continuously grow your business, because if you don't grow, you're dying. So you need to do that to stay ahead of your competition. But it's been really to listen to the customers, take back the ideas. They're the ones giving you all the ideas. Customers say, "I wish it did this, I wish it did that." And you take those back and you have very talented development team that could turn these ideas into real products. So today it's a little bit more complicated. You've got to look at trends in the market. You've got to look at your largest customer needs. You've got to really connect all these dots and say, where are we going to be 3 years from now? Are we going to be on the cloud? Are we going to be on IoT? Are we SaaS based? Are we on-premise based? In the software business, it's changing incredibly fast. You've got to be really on top of these things.
So if somebody is listening to this and they're on the earlier stage of entrepreneurship, what advice do you have for them?
Well, when you start out, it's the people that you start with. Now, on occasion, you do this by yourself, but many times you need a team with you. So when you're getting started, these are your partners. If they're your partners, you're getting married to these people. And you're getting married. I can remember we were in a boiler room in my basement, and there would be 5 of us working down there. And my wife would come home after working all day, and one of my partners said, "So what's for dinner tonight? We've been working all day." She goes, "I married him. I didn't marry him." It was that sort of thing. You just you got married to these guys. So now everything about them, could explode. You have to really have good relationships with the people that you're going to get in business with. That's number one. Most businesses fail because you're in with someone and they break up. And well, now what do? You have this legal entity and you're going your separate ways. The whole thing falls apart. So I'd say that's an important aspect. Being close to the customer, really building things that people need. Not that's fun, but things that people can use and people need. So you need some, I would say, common sense. It's not many people have common sense. It's a really tough thing. Something people they could be graduates from MIT. They've got all the degrees, and we had several people like that. But they would have a green sock and a red sock and would not understand, could not listen to the customers, didn't want to do what the needs of the marketplace were. They knew better.
So of the original founders, how many stuck around through the whole journey?
So through the whole journey, over time, we were working 80 hours a week, and you continue to do that, for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Most of the people said, "Russ, I'm tired. Can you buy me out?" Mm-hmm. So I was the last one standing. So what we did was we used the company cash, and we simply bought everybody's stock back, and I'm the last one standing. So that's how you become the final CEO and owner, because there's nobody left.
So as the CEO, I spend a lot of time talking to people at the C-level and other executives and leaders. And the one thing I've seen, which is why the new name of the show is becoming Making Waves at C-level, is CEOs who are successful, who get their companies through a long journey, who get to that exit. A lot of them have to make some hard decisions along the way. They have to make waves. What are some examples where you've had to do that?
Well, we started out with a great idea, and we were on a platform. We were on the DOS platform at the time. It was DOS. That's what you used. And then by 1993, Windows came out. Now, I had partners that said, no one's going to ever use Windows on a factory floor. I mean, you got to do mission critical stuff.
Isn't that fun to bring up at a cocktail party now? Like, remember when you said Windows was a fad?
And so I would say, I said, we really need to get on the Windows platform because I believe in Bill Gates. Look what he's done here. Let's ride that wave. And some partners did not want to go into the Windows platform. They just thought it was a fad. Another one when there was the battle between IBM and Microsoft with OS2. Here's Big Blue, and they've got this incredible operating system, technically better, but they were Big Blue, and you had, again, Bill Gates. So you're going to bet against Bill Gates. Back then, I had partners that said, and they quit over it. I had 2 of them that quit, that they wanted to go down the direction of OS2. I kept everybody focused on the Windows platform. So that was the second time that we could have died. If we'd gone the wrong direction, if we didn't get onto Windows, that would have been a slow death. If we had gone down the OS2 path, that would have been a slow death. So there's along the road, every 5 years, you get hit with this decision you've got to make. And you've got your partners with you and everybody around you advising you. At the end of the day, somebody's got to make that decision, and it's a life and death decision. Because if you go down a direction that consumes all your resources, your marketing activity, who you're partnering with, where you're going, and if it's the wrong path, you fork, and that's going off a cliff. And so that's how you survive, making sure you make the right decisions. We've been lucky. Over 30 years, we've made the right decisions, and all it takes is one, then you're done.
So you've worked with and around a lot of people who have succeeded, both as entrepreneurs, but also as just executives in a growing company. What do you think is the difference between people who have potential and kind of get stuck and people who have potential who really perform at a really high level? Why do some people get from potential to massive results and other people fall off the deep end?
Well, there's taking risks is one, okay, but then taking risks with your own resources and money and taking risks with someone else's, okay, and that's a fork in the road that you have to decide. Do we go out and do an IPO? Do we go take venture money? How much of that? You're giving away your soul. They're taking 10%, 20%. Pretty soon you're left with 5%, and they own the company. Now, if you make a mistake or you don't get along, you're out. So you're making a very big decision. Now, on the upside, if you use other people's money, you throw it at marketing, more sales, you expand quickly, you grow fast, and then you've got 5% of a much bigger pie. So you go with the grow at your own speed or use other people's, and that's a tough decision for a lot of people. Today we started the old-fashioned way. I got $15,000 from my mom and gave her 10% of the company for it, which she didn't want. And then when we cashed out, my 88-year-old mom says, "What am I going to do with all of this?"
Well, I was going to ask if she was still alive today, because what a great story to be 88 years old and have an exit. Be like, oh, well, look at that.
She's alive. And I got her an iPad, and she sits there and invests and watches CNBC and buys Netflix and Roku. And I said, "Mom, what are you buying today?" "I'm buying lots of Roku." I said, "What's Roku?" She goes, "I have no idea, but it's hot." She's 88. So I bought her a little Roku device. I wanted to hook it on her TV set. I said, "Mom, this is what you invest
You own the company, Mom. You should have one.
Part of this company." So she's got the uncanny ability to bet on Facebook, on Amazon, on Netflix. I mean, I don't know. She just picks them. She says, "Look, I invested in you, and I went out as well."
What a great story. Grandma at 88 is a tech investor. That's what we like to hear. So I've actually got more questions for you. I'm not going to let you go yet, but first I have to thank the sponsor of this episode. So this episode, like all of them, is brought to you by Podfly Productions. Podfly takes the time and the headache out of creating your own podcast. And I have worked with Podfly since the very beginning of this show. In fact, I say it all the time. I couldn't have done it if I hadn't partnered with them, because Podfly, they do all the heavy lifting and the technical work so that you can focus on creating great content, growing your audience, and interviewing really cool people like Russ Agrusa. Hey, if you want to start a podcast, and I know that some of you do, jump over to podfly.net/coolthings and check out the offer that they have for the listeners of the show. And in fact, I just remembered I'm going to have to talk to them. They're going to have to change that link to podfly.net/makingwaves, but we'll do that after July 1st. So Russ, I currently call the show Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. What's the coolest thing you're doing with the company right now?
Coolest thing with the company? Well, we as we've been absorbed by Mitsubishi and having to deal with a company that's got several 100,000 people. Mitsubishi, people don't know them very well, but they own Nikon, they own Kirin Beer in Japan. They've got huge elevators, escalators, robotics. Most of the iPads and the iPhones are made on Mitsubishi equipment, where they make the wave soldering machines and robotics that hold the iPad up and put the little screws in. I mean, you might buy an iPad. There's 30,000 robots building one of those things. There's no people in there. So really integrating with them is a lot of fun, because the Japanese are not as good at software as we are, because we've kind of invented the languages, the science of that. And so they're getting an infusion of how to do agile development, how to quickly get products out, how to build scalable software. So I think in this point in my life, that's really been a lot of fun, is to work with a mega company and teaching them some of the things that we've done very well.
So what are some of the differences from being the head of a 250 person company to being part of a company with so many people and so many different levels? What's the good, the bad, the ugly?
Well, they have a lot of rules, of course. They have a lot of compliance. They have export controls. When you're a large company, if you were to and this happened to us once, if you export products to a country that's on the list of banned countries, you can get in a lot of trouble. it was the Kosovo War was going on. It was just starting, and one of our customers was a power plant in Yugoslavia. So we had packaged up, they ordered products every year. They had been a long-time customer. We were about to ship a lot of product to Yugoslavia. It was intercepted by UPS. UPS calls Department of Commerce. They said, we got a company here shipping product to Yugoslavia. So the next thing I know is 12 people with badges and guns arrive at the confiscate our fax machines, confiscate computers. They said, did you know you're shipping to an export controlled country? I said, no, they were fine last week.
I was going to say, they weren't last time.
They weren't last week, but ignorance of the laws, no excuse. And it cost us almost $500,000 in legal fees to get out of this thing. So they, as a large company, they're very hypersensitive about where you export to, following all the rules and regulations, all signing off. The red tape is monstrous. The only way to describe it.
So, Russ, I love it when I have a chance to talk to someone like you who has really built something over such a long journey. I love to come back and ask them, who do you admire when you look at entrepreneurs? Because we could talk about you and Iconics all day long. I mean, the stories just keep getting better. However, I think that great entrepreneurs, I think that they're observers. So I love to ask people, when you look out at that entrepreneur-sphere, who do you say, wow, she or he, they're doing cool things?
And if you look at the market today, the people that are the real entrepreneurs are the ones that are moving things forward at an astronomical rate. Examples of that were Steve Jobs. I mean, I really admired him. Bill Gates, because we were a 6-time partner of the year with Microsoft. We won 6 Oscars from them for being such a great partner. In fact, our software runs their entire campus. And so I met Bill Gates many times, and I watched him in action and the way he worked. I mean, you could see how he connected the dots. Connecting the dots, working your team is amazing. Now, when you're appointed as a CEO and it's not your baby and you didn't grow it, it's hard. So you see Elon Musk, what he's doing and how he's driving progress, and Bezos from Amazon. This is the wave of entrepreneurs they've got enough force and ownership to drive the needle and take massive risks.
So the last question that I ask everybody is what do you do to give back to the greater good? Because I think in addition to making money, I think entrepreneurs want to leave a mark on society. So I love to ask the people who come on my show, what did they do to give back?
Well, my wife passed away 4 years ago, and she died of colon cancer at an age of 56, and she was beautiful. And so I got involved with Harvard and Dana-Farber and met all the doctors. So we funded the Project Paula Fund. And I've given a lot of money to them, and we're working on immunotherapy for various cancers. So they're doing tremendous work. So I'm kind of sponsoring a lot of core research at the Cancer Institute there. And then I'm meeting with them once a month. They took her colon cancer and planted it into 3 mice. And so Paula lives on in these mice. And so they're constantly trying different immunotherapies on them and having some amazing success. So that's one. And then the universities really giving back to the schools, building out new internet conference rooms and various things on campus. So I've been giving back that way.
Yeah, it is amazing what is going on in academia with the high tech that's been added into these schools. I had the ability to tour the new business school building at Carnegie Mellon just a year ago when my daughter graduated, and the level of technology in that building, it's amazing what they've done. I mean, I remember going to school; it was just 4 walls and a pencil.
The tech companies, there's a big fight for and competition for the talent. So if you can get them on your platform, if you can sponsor a lot of that work, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, no,
that's why you're seeing all that money being given.
That is awesome, and thank you so much for what you give there, but also what you're doing with the project in your wife's name. That's a beautiful story. So as I wrap this up, if somebody listened to this episode and they have to know more about you, they want to learn more about Iconics, how do they find you?
Well, if they want to know something about Iconics, it's www.iconics.com, and they can mail me at russa@iconics.com. Love
Nice.
to get back to people.
Nice. That is awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here on the show. I really appreciate you, and I look forward to whenever you're able to have your customer event. I look forward to being there and sharing in that experience, because I was pretty impressed with what you guys do for your customers, and I know that when we can get together face to face again, you guys are going to rock their socks.
We try to each year. So thank you very much for helping us out, and I enjoyed the interview with you.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened. I say it every single time. If it wasn't for the audience, why would we have the podcast? I'm excited about the changes that are coming. I would love to hear from you if you're a regular listener and you know someone who's a CEO of a company that has grown to the level of Iconics or larger. I would love to interview somebody in their C-suite, because that's what we're looking to do with the new shape of the show. And just keep tuning in. We're going to make a lot of positive changes. The show should continue to grow as we go forward, and I always welcome your feedback. Please go over to iTunes and leave a review, or wherever you get your podcast love. Just leave a little review saying what you like about the show. You can find me on Twitter at Tom Singer or at Cool Podcast. Also, in addition to that, I'm on all the social medias at Tom Singer. I'd love to hear from you. We're going to be back in a couple of days with an interview with somebody just as cool as Russ. I know you're thinking, how is that even possible? But we always find somebody. So please come back. But in the meantime, go out there, flex your entrepreneurial muscle. Make sure your career ladder is against the right wall, because there's nothing worse than getting to the top and realizing, I climbed the wrong ladder. And then finally, while you're out there doing what you do, have a great day.
Thank you for being part of the Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do podcast. Without your participation and listening to these conversations, there is no show. Connect with Tom at tomsinger.com and follow him on Twitter at tomsinger.